You nervous?
I'm very nervous.
You should be very nervous.
Yeah.
Everything I do turns into a firestorm.
You're not a real man. A real woman or what? Yeah.
All right,
So good.
Here we go. In 3, 2, let's do it.
Okay, guys, we are rolling into another episode of the Candace Owens Show. And wow, the student has become the teacher. When I was an early scrub on YouTube, I got the call and Dave Rubin wanted to have me on his show and I freaked out. And Dave Rubin, welcome to the Candace Owens Show.
I have regretted that every day since.
Did you ever think that you'd be sitting across from me on my show? Be real.
All right. Well, joking aside, you are the only person that walked out of my studio after one interview, and I turned to David, who's my husband, partner, and producer, and I was like, she is going places. Like, it was so obvious that you were just on it and you were going to relentlessly fight for what you believe in. I did not realize the rise would be like this.
Right. I guess it's been a little bit more of a rocket ship. And it's
yeah.
hard because I'm still learning. I don't think people realize that. Remember, I didn't even have opinions on things when I was on your show.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple things, but you did the right thing, though. So there was a moment where I asked you, I think, something about the surveillance state. And you basically were like, I don't know enough to talk about that right now. And I was like, well, that's what you're supposed to say if you don't know enough to talk about right now. But that's not what anyone does. No one does that on cable news, right? No politician ever does that. They don't stop and be like, you know what, I really need to think that one through, or I need to find out more before they just give you some ridiculous answer. And it's why we're watching the media crumble and the political establishment crumble. It's all nonsense.
Right.
You have basically people that have never accomplished anything, most of them, except, become people that are in office or get TV gigs. They've never done anything. They've never run anything. They've never employed anyone. And yet, not only are they experts, if only they were in charge, if only we would give them power over us, they could tell us how to live our lives better.
Right.
And it's all nonsense. And one of the things that I'm thrilled about, and I think you're part of it, and I like to think I'm part of it, and a bunch of us are, is that we're waking people up to this nonsense.
Right.
That it's your life. You as an individual have to figure out how to live your life the best way possible. And you don't have to turn to the government for everything. And the more that you turn to the government for everything, actually, the more that you outsource the point of being a human, which is to be on an adventure and figure out life for yourself. Every great movie they ever loved, what's the point? What does the hero do? The hero's not like, oh, can I get the government to help me? No, they're like, Luke was like, I'll blow up the Death Star. Hey, Frodo, I'm going to throw the ring in the, what the hell was that? I wasn't a big fan of that movie.
I don't know, it was like an
He threw the ring in
eye of the mountain.
Yeah, he threw the thing in the eye of the mountain. He did it, though. He didn't call up somebody to do it.
Right.
And so there's a political awakening happening, and I'm very enthused by it.
You're
awesome,
at the forefront of it. And I'm going to call you out on something.
Yes, let's fight.
We're already
please.
2 minutes in.
Yeah,
right?
we're
So
2
let's
minutes
just
in.
get
We
to
said
it.
nice things about each other.
I'm so sick of you saying that you're a classical liberal. It makes me physically nauseous. Okay, the whole world knows that there's just no way. You're too practical. You're too smart, and you're not one of those people that's I'm still learning. We've watched your stuff. Okay, you've spoken to so many people. You have an in-depth knowledge of things that you've done stuff on even. Drugs and psychedelics, and you're like a wealth of knowledge, and yet you insist on calling yourself a classical liberal, and it's cheap and it's ending today.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for putting vodka in here, because that's going to help this portion of the conversation. Okay, so look, I am a classical liberal, and I would argue if we sit here long enough, I can get you to admit that you're a classical liberal too. Now, the way these words and phrases has shifted over the years is the issue, because by, say, British standards, we're both basically liberals. By American standards, the left has hijacked liberalism. So liberalism, which basically means live and let live, and classical liberalism, which means that you believe in individual rights above anything else. You don't believe in group rights or collective rights. You believe in individual rights. You believe in free speech. You believe in open inquiry. You believe in laissez-faire economics with a light touch from the government. Now, everything I just said sounds like conservatism, right? That's why you're getting all hot and bothered over here. But the point is that there was a version of liberalism. Liberalism at its core, that is what it's about. And then the left sort of hijacked that using social issues mostly. And I remember, I'm not that old, I'm 42. I remember when there was a decent liberalism.
But Dave, the plane has been hijacked. That's the point, right? So it's nice to say.
I was the guy yelling.
Right.
I was telling people as they were getting on the plane, you may not want to get on this plane, guys. You see this guy that's that's the hijacker.
Then you have to change it. It's like me saying, the reason why I say I'm not a feminist. Yes, I could go back and I say I'm a classical feminist.
Sure.
Right?
You could say I'm a first wave feminist.
Right, I'm a first wave feminist. I'm a classical feminist. I believe that men and women should have the similar rights. We should have equality for men and women. But the truth is, the plane's been hijacked. It's not feminism anymore. So you have to acknowledge what you are by definition today. Bub, back me up right now and threaten Dave Rubin.
Okay, well, I'm a classical straight white man.
Oh, Jesus, a classical straight white man.
Classical straight white male.
Yeah, that's the scariest of all things these days.
Right.
Jeez.
Well, that was classical,
I feel
you
threatened.
hired one to run the show?
I feel threatened.
So, look, I get your point. So it would be silly for you to say I'm a feminist now, and then every time that you say it, have to qualify. I mean a first wave feminist. However, there are quite literally millions of people, not only in the United States, but all over the world, that have been brought up through leftism, that's the default position, that being a lefty basically is the good thing. And that's what the media teaches you. That's what the political establishment teaches you. And I think the reason people care about what I do is 4 or 5 years ago when I started talking about this as a progressive, because I was, and I started going, guys, something's not right here. This identity politics thing is very dangerous. You can't claim that everybody who you disagree with, it's not possible that everyone that you disagree with is a bigot or a racist or a homophobe. You can't, how are you guys so moral and everyone else is so immoral? All of these things, I started talking about it. And then by just being honest about what I was thinking, people started waking up to it. So, look, right now look, Candace, we do college gigs together. Who do we get invited by? We get invited by conservatives and libertarians.
Right.
I never get invited by any lefty group or progressive group or anything like that. Would I go if I got invited? Of course I would.
Yeah,
and what do we do at the events that we do? I do this not just when I'm with you. I always go up there and I say, I'll ask, if you disagree with me, come up first.
Right.
I always go out of my way to do that. Those are liberal principles. Now, do I have more in common with conservatives of today? Of course.
Right.
I'm not denying that that's the truth. But for me to say that I'm not a liberal anymore, while I understand the utility of it in the way that you're laying it out, would actually not do a good service.
So you're saying
I
that,
don't think.
And maybe you're right, because I'm sure that people on the left are much more inclined to watch your show than they are to watch mine, right? Because I've sort of said I'm a conservative and they think I'm already lost. And maybe if they actually listened to what I was saying, they would be brought over. But because you say, I guess they identify with you more because you're like, look, I'm a classical liberal. I'm one of you, and here's what I'm seeing as a classical liberal.
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling myself a classical feminist. Right?
Well, you are a classical feminist.
I am.
Though,
I actually believe in equality, and this is not equality. That we're getting, like, we want plus rights, and we want power, and we want control. That's not equality, right?
No, that's authoritarian craziness, which is what modern feminism has morphed into. So yes, it would, by that logic, it would make sense if you started walking around saying I bet you would gain some traction actually if you did that. And I don't mean this purely like now it sounds like
what I need is traction.
Yeah. You want to get on Twitter? Right. You want a trend girl? You know what I'm saying? Right.
Last thing I'm looking for right now is traction.
Yeah, a little more juice for Candace. That would be good. No, but there would be value in that. Imagine if you just got that phrase out there. I'm a classical, because people are confused because you are a feminist.
Right.
Your life is what feminism is supposed to be. You have, as a woman, you happen to be a woman, and you have relentlessly fought for what you believe in, and you have succeeded at it. You have not asked for favors. You have not used your sex, your gender as a cudgel over anyone. You have done what the essence of true feminism is. So in a certain sense, you are a classical feminist.
Right.
And actually, if you started tweeting that phrase out, it might help people make the distinction so that when people on the right, when you say I'm a feminist, and you really do mean it, well, that's confusing to people on the right now because they're going, whoa, feminist, you mean this new thing where, the Women's March and this thing where we have to judge each other in the Oppression Olympics and all of those things. So there's some value in it. I would just say I don't really want to, because there are so many bad actors on the left, I don't want to, I don't owe them giving up something that I know is true.
Right.
I know it is true. It does not mean that I don't agree with you guys more on most things at this point. Like if I've shifted on anything, I'd say I've shifted a little bit economically right, and so I've shifted more libertarian right. But beyond that,
he's making some money now, guys.
Yeah. Well, but that is, but I'll tell you what, that is part of it.
Right.
But that's not because of greed or any way that they would frame the argument around money. I can tell you that I'm a small business owner, right?
So you get
I have several. We have about 5 full-time employees. We've got about 5 part-time employees. I pay all their dental and health 100%. We treat our employees great. I now know that the way business operates, by being a small business owner, if the government comes in and takes a huge percentage, and I live in California, so when I pay my taxes, it's an obscene amount of money. Well, that's money that I can't now hire more people or put towards marketing or a series of other.
I get it. And they rely on the ignorance of people that have not ever tried to start their own businesses.
Right.
And then they just paint you as greedy and you're white and you're male and that's the entire reason. But it's like, actually, no, I'm doing more for people to come up. I'm employing people, right? I want to give them good benefits. I want to make sure they have a standard of living that's agreeable. But the people, unless you live it, unless you go through it, it's very difficult for them to understand this.
Right. So that, I mean, I know you know this, but what the left has done very effectively is they say everything that is easy to understand at the most sort of low resolution level. So I'm for women, I'm for black people, I'm for Muslims, I'm for high taxes on rich people. All of these things, they all sound good. Like you're for all of these people, you're for taking from the rich and giving to the poor. It all sounds good at that very low resolution level. But once you dig a little bit deeper, it's all nonsense. Right. I mean, it really is all nonsense. You can't say you're for women. So when they say they're for women, well, they're not for Candace Owens, right? They're not for Nikki Haley. They're not for Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
They're not for Ivanka Trump. They were for Ivanka Trump. Now they're not for Ivanka Trump.
So saying you're for women is just a silly thing. Now, I'm 100% for women's equality, which they have in the United States. But to say you're for black people, they're not for, are they for Candace Owens?
Not for Candace Owens,
right, we know
Larry
this, they're not
Elder,
for Kanye West.
Condoleezza Rice, not for Kanye West until he says he wants out of politics. Now his press has been okay.
Right, now it's gotten a little, suddenly they don't want to send him to the mental institution
Right, it's
anymore.
weird. He seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, before he was tweeting from a mental institution.
Right.
Now he's out of politics. They're like, oh, he's great.
He's great.
But all of these things, they sound good if you don't think about them. So it sounds good. Rich people should be taxed to the end, 70%. Like Ocasio-Cortez, 70%, which then if you lived in New York City, I read that it was with New York City taxes and state taxes, at the highest margins, it would be 84% marginal tax rate. I mean, now you may go, well, no one needs that much money, but A, it's not up to you to decide how much someone else should have. And B, just because the state then takes all that money, it doesn't mean that they do anything good with it.
Actually, they're going to give it to you. Of course they're not going to give it to you.
And guess what? If they gave it to you, that wouldn't be good either. It doesn't mean that you earn it or owe anything. So I would, in almost every case, I would say the less government involvement is the answer. And believe it or not, that is a liberal principle. But will I ever like Steven Crowder, for example, will always be tweeting about the liberals. And every now and again, I'll be like, Crowder, you don't really mean the liberals, you mean the lefties. Now, I know it's an unwinnable long-term.
No, Dennis Prager hits on this too, and I probably should switch my language too, because there is difference between a liberal and a leftist, and I see it all the time. I have liberals come up to me and say, "Oh my God, Candace Owens, I follow you on Twitter. Like I'm a liberal, just so you know.
Yeah.
But I like hearing your ideas." And I go, "Yes, you are a liberal. You are not a leftist."
And that's why it's worth holding that position. So I get it. I could go all in on this, and I could be like, I'm a conservative, and then think to the conservatives how much value that would have because I'm gay married and, I'm begrudgingly pro-choice and I'm pro-weed, like things that they're not supposed to be for.
Right.
But I could be like, I'm a conservative and they're cool with me. Like that would have a lot of value to the conservatives.
Right.
But I don't believe, I'm being true to myself.
Right.
And also, at the political conversation level, it's fun to like go through all these words and, what are you? So we can all think of each other in like this certain box and all that. But what I would rather do is just talk about whatever my ideas are, and then at the end of the day, someone watching this can say, he's a liberal, or he's an idiot, or or he's a conservative, or whatever else. And
I think
you
you're
just let the
conservative.
chips fall where they may. Yes. So by 2019 standards, in that I want to conserve liberalism. I want to conserve free speech while we still got it.
Liberalism.
Yeah.
Well done.
I've been doing this for a while.
Right.
Come on now.
Well done. I want to conserve liberalism.
Clever.
Classical liberal.
I prepared today.
Right, exactly.
But that is the truth. The things that that you want to conserve. I want to conserve freedom. I want to conserve limited government, states' rights, people to control their own destiny. These are all things that right now are pretty rich on the right. And there is nothing left on the left. I mean, this is just sadly true. I think I've only said this once or twice before, but since we're doing this at PragerU, and since we're doing this right now, when I did that "Why I Left the Left" video, which was their number one video for like 2 years, and now this Stuckey, this Ally Stuckey.
Oh, she's good.
She took me out. She's number one.
Yeah,
she took me out. She's number one. So we'll see about that. But I think I have like the number 1 in 10 videos. That's pretty good. But anyway. That was a little self-congratulations for myself there.
Hold on, stop. Congratulations, Dave.
Okay,
everybody give him what he's looking for.
Legally, the PragerU people have to applaud that, don't you? What is Dennis doing over here? But when I did that video, Why I Left the Left, I never said the phrase I left the left. I just did sort of a decimation of the left. And I did, if you're a liberal, you're not a leftist. That was the premise of the video, if you watch the 2-minute video. And they titled it Why I Left the Left. And I woke up that morning. I didn't know the video was going up that day. And my phone's blowing up about this. And I see, Why I Left the Left, Dave Rubin. I was pissed. I was actually really pissed because I was like, I never said that. And I've been trying to reform the left from the inside. But now I'm making a video that I know is going to go viral. It was very obvious within 5 minutes where it's saying I left the left. Like, does that erode my credibility amongst the lefties? And what I quickly realized was there was a world of people. I mean, a massive world of people, millions and millions of people that were thinking the exact same thing I was thinking. So it doesn't, I can't honestly say I'm part of the left anymore. But what I can do is make the distinction between a lefty and a liberal, and Dennis does do that, and I think it's important to do those things.
I think one of the things that I'm also noticing now, and it's a good time if you are on the left to jump ship because they're totally cannibalizing themselves right now.
Well, this can't sustain itself.
It cannot sustain itself. I'm watching it. I'm just like, this is getting weird, but I'm enjoying watching this. And I was talking recently about the speaking of feminism.
Yeah.
Feminism and trans debate, like how's that gonna kind of go in together? Because I thought feminism, classic feminism, we want equality with men, and we've carved out all of these spaces for us in sports, and now all of a sudden men can, if you talk about the patriarchy, can step into what we're doing and beat us at everything
men
because biologically, right, they can do that. I don't want men abusing women unless they're wrestling them and saying they identify in a chokehold.
Yeah.
And it's insane to me that this is okay. That this is even a debate or a discussion.
Well, this is what they do. They stake out crazy positions and then they make you negotiate backwards. So look, the worst player in the NBA, the worst male professional basketball player would be the MVP of the WNBA.
That's exactly right.
That's just true. I don't take some great pleasure in saying
You're transphobic.
Yeah, I remember there was this woman when the
You're transphobic.
Yeah, when I remember when the WNBA started, there was this woman, Cynthia Cooper, who played on the Houston, I think they were the Houston Comets, and she was awesome. But I remember thinking she would be a scrub in the NBA. You know what I mean? Because she was still small. Women generally are smaller. Mm-hmm. She wasn't really that fast compared to the way a fast man is. These are just biological realities, and they don't want us to be able to talk about biological realities. I don't like seeing those pictures. When I see a trans athlete, so a male to female trans athlete choking a woman, and then I see the women on the left and the women's march and that crew, the feminists defending that, because they've created this intersectional pyramid where now trans is sort of above female and Islam is above that and this is above that and this is above that. And these are all competing interests.
Right.
You cannot group people together by your perceived oppressions, which, by the way, they're perceived oppressions. They're not real oppressions.
No, of course.
If you live in the United States of America in 2019, you are not oppressed. You have every this is the greatest.
Spoiled rotten.
You are spoiled freaking rotten. And you know how you know you're spoiled rotten? Because you don't go anywhere.
Right.
None of these people go anywhere.
They've
Lena
never been to
Dunham
another
is still
country.
here.
Right.
Leave.
I'm going to Canada. Go. Lena
Yeah.
Dunham. No. Okay, America's great. Of course.
Yeah.
By the way, did you read? You need to read this. So Lena Dunham just did an open essay in, I want to say it might have been Vogue.com. Don't quote me, but she was talking about her sex life. She's always talking about her sex life.
Oof.
I know, and it's not fun for us, but I had to read it because
I actually just got gayer.
talk about.
Here's the promo.
There's the promo.
There it is.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how she likes it really rough in bed. And now, because of movements like Me Too, men won't be rough in bed. Literally, she's like the author of the Me Too movement. You did this to yourself. And then she says, I mean, this poor guy is on this date and she tells him, like, he's not being rough enough. And she's like, and I'm having thoughts about the Me Too movement. And yes, exactly. Men are terrified to talk, to make a move, to do anything. And it's turning them into women. And these women don't actually want men. Of course she likes it rough in bed, right? Of course she's talking about this openly. And I'm just thinking to myself, it was astonishing to just read it and to appreciate the psychology behind this.
Yeah.
And she's just having a full meltdown. Of course, in the end, doesn't work out with this guy, and he never calls her back. And then one day when is being rough with her, she says that was too rough.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, What do you want? What do you want, feminists? What do you want?
But the reason they behave this way is because they've created basically a completely incohesive worldview. When you have all of these ideas that are at odds with each other, the truth is, and this is not phobic of anyone, to say you are for Islam and for gay people. These are absolutely competing interests. Now, does that mean that your next door neighbor who happens to be Muslim may love gay people? He may be gay himself.
Right.
But you can't say you're for a set of ideas that where these ideas are practiced is horrible for gay people. So pick one. Right. So this is why Ilhan Omar is the most disingenuous person that we have in the United States government, possibly ever. But think about it. She runs around screaming about trans rights and gay rights and all of these things.
Swears over the Quran.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, and again, this has nothing to do with judging any individual Muslim person, of course.
No, it's just objective truths.
Yeah. But does she go, and she would tell you that any Christian church that doesn't allow gay marriage is full of a bunch of bigots, right? And that's what the media will tell you. They go after Chris Pratt's church. But there's no mosque in America that performs gay marriages. Why does she go to a mosque that is bigoted in her view? Right. But she does, and it's because they create this system that is it's completely incongruent.
No.
So you'll always be walking around with these inconsistencies, and then what's the best thing to do? Well, if you get challenged on the ideas of your inconsistency, it's not to debate the ideas, it's to immediately say that the person across from you is a racist or a bigot.
Right.
And they've tricked everyone to thinking that that's how they can behave. And I think that if I've done one thing pretty decently in the last couple of years, by escaping that and showing people, if you actually can think for yourself and be willing to sit across in my own home where my studio is from Ben Shapiro, who takes a religious approach to marriage. So this is not someone who's thrilled about gay marriage, but now takes a libertarian approach that it shouldn't be government. Well, I can then invite him into my home and we can have a debate about that.
Right.
Just this week, my show this week is with Lila Rose from Live Action Network, who's a pro-life advocate. As I've said, I'm begrudgingly pro-choice. We had a great conversation about that. Those are liberal principles, to be able to agree to disagree, to be able to figure out where the truth is. And unfortunately, again, that's just not what the left is doing right now. And I don't think, the thing is, it needs to burn. I used to think you could reform it, and that's why I was like, all right, if I stay in this thing, we can fix this. But what I've realized is that every time there's been a chance where they should look in the mirror, Trump got elected president, maybe you should look in the mirror.
I actually thought they would.
The Mueller thing, look in the mirror, but you
they
consistently,
just triple down.
They double down, they triple down, and they keep going.
Down. They're just like, there's more racists than we thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, what?
But also they find enemies everywhere. So I've been saying this for years. They will, at the end, they will turn on Bernie, because at the end, no matter what he offers them, no matter how many socialist, nonsensical things he offers them, he is an old white man. So no matter what happens, they will turn on him one day. Even the idea right now, so Joe Biden, who's basically just a centrist sort of nothing. You can find tweets of mine, I think, from like 10 years ago when he was originally running against Obama, before Obama became the nominee. So, this is 10, 11 years ago. I kind of like Joe Biden. He struck me as like a basically decent liberal who was sort of centrist.
Running around, eating ice cream.
Yeah, whatever. And I was
how
I
got here.
Yeah. Yeah. Not as much ice cream as Trump, right? Because Trump has two ice creams while everyone has one ice cream. But it's like they're floating this idea of Joe Biden right now. And it's like, Joe Biden would have to have some sort of brain damage to do it, because they would have to destroy him by default.
Right.
He is everything that they have fought. They have created a system where you think the old white guy is going to be the one that's going to save the Democratic Party. He may not realize it. Like, he may be so in his own zone after being VP that he doesn't realize what the base of the party is, but they will destroy
him.
And that's so sad,
right.
that they're going to then, the collection of people that they have from Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and Beto, it's such an unqualified group of people who will just try to use each one of their own oppressions against each other. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, where is the party of JFK? That's why I know I'm still a liberal.
Right.
Because JFK was a liberal Democrat.
It's happening. It's Trump.
Yeah.
You want to know where it is? It's a Trump.
You may be right. You may be right. Trump, and you know what? Look, I think actually after the Mueller thing, what's going to happen is Trump will now feel very vindicated and very free. And what I would love to see, and I'm starting to see this, is that the center right will start, it's happening already, but it will become really rich with ideas because the left will have purged everybody. And then I think if Trump goes to that, if he goes, you know what, I really did kind of crush the mainstream media now. It wasn't that I just became president. I survived the Mueller thing, right? So I survived MSNBC, I survived Brian Stelter and the rest of these clowns. And if he takes his foot off the gas a little bit, if he goes, you know, I'm going to maybe not attack my enemies as much, just like a couple little tactical things, I think the opportunity for a center right that is the home now of the classical liberals and the disaffected lefties and the conservatives and the libertarians and whatever else, man, that's 80% of America right there. So take that can you send this to him?
No,
You're buddy with him. Can you?
I agree. I totally agree. I think he had to go full pedal to the metal in the beginning because he's just fighting everyone. But what we're seeing right now is the slow and painful death of the mainstream media, well deserved, by the way, and the birth of a new alternative media. People like you, people like me, because what's happening is people are thirsty for truth. They're thirsty for conversation even, right? So people might be watching this and they might disagree with me, they might disagree with you, but they respect the fact that we're willing to engage in a dialogue about things that they're not supposed to talk to, lest be considered a transphobe or a homophobe or whatever, however many phobes and things that they have that they can call us.
Yeah.
And they're getting so ridiculous now where sometimes you have to have fun, right? So like I'm literally Hitler, like in the press, because I really have the look and I'm sure he would have loved me, right? He would have looked and said, that's my girl, right?
Yeah.
And
only
now,
second to me.
Right. And then you talk about this stuff where they're not even just actively creating a society, leftists, that other people can't thrive in. They can't thrive in it themselves, right? They're creating things that they don't want. And that was what was so astonishing to me about the Selena Dunham piece, is that she went so hard in on the Me Too movement and never once stopped to think, do I want men who are afraid to talk to me, that are afraid to make moves on me? They don't think, they just do.
But that's what I'm saying about this incohesive or this disconnected set of ideas that actually will always lead you to that. So think about it. When the Women's March was dealing with this whole thing about how they were treating Jews, they were literally talking about, well, wait a minute, do we have to treat Jews like white people? That was the idea. Now, of course, Judaism is a religion, so there are black Jews and there are white Jews and there are Latino Jews and everything else. But the idea, it shows the flaw of collectivism, that they were like, wait a minute, here's a group of people that have been holocausted and pogromed and hunted and hounded for thousands of years. It's the most ridiculously depressing history of all time, and yet alternately completely inspiring because they've survived and done so many good things.
Black community could learn. If you're watching Black community, I always say, who do we need to learn from? The Jewish community. The bounce back from the Holocaust to where Jewish people are in America today is astonishing and should be well respected by every group that's ever lived through anything. There is no Jewish Lives Matter chapter. They're not burning down their own neighborhoods. They're starting businesses. They're raising up their own. And the network and the community, the sense of community that the Jewish people have is something that should be admired.
Yeah, well, that's what keeps people going. I mean, that's the story of Fiddler on the Roof. Like,
right.
That this thing keeps going no matter how bad it gets. And the Russians are going to come and take your village. You go somewhere else and do something good somewhere else and keep those traditions going that keep you connected to the broader eternal thing, whatever you want to call that. Where the hell was I going with this?
I don't know. I just jumped in. But Fiddler on the Roof, I played the daughter in middle school.
I do remember her being a black woman.
If I were a rich man, I just want everybody to know that my acting chops, I did play.
I had a good point there. Before that, there was something really
you're
good
getting
there.
Old.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
You're getting old. Just have
I'm
some more
working
vodka.
I'm working so hard these days.
Right, I know.
I have so many things going on at once. I'm writing this book and I'm working on this tech stuff with Peterson and some other things, because we left Patreon and that whole thing.
Oh, hey, America, if you'd like to know something fun about Dave Rubin, speaking of money and rich people, Candace Owens no longer has any money going into her Patreon account because I went on Twitter one day and Dave Rubin announced with Jordan Peterson that we should all leave Patreon. So and I got affected. I didn't even join the movement, but I'm now in the movement. Leave Patreon.
Yeah,
but that was good. The war on tech is something.
With me. I'd give you a couple bucks.
You can cut me a check on the way out, and I know where you live. But this is actually important. So the tech thing is increasingly important, right?
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that I regret, and I will say this now, it's that I didn't speak when Alex Jones got banned from Twitter, and I should have, and it was wrong for me not to.
So I've done the same mea culpa, by the way. I've said this post it happening, Jones getting booted from all the platforms. I did a show with Eric Weinstein, and I said, I think that we in the IDW, the intellectual dark web, whatever you want to call this loose group of people that have been coming together and talking about these things, I said that I think we should have offered Jones a better defense. It has nothing to do with anything he said. If I tell you truly, that I have watched maybe 5 cumulative minutes of anything he's ever done. And it's mostly just 20-second videos on Twitter of him screaming.
Right.
So I actually don't, even the Sandy Hook thing, I'm truly not that familiar with most
what
of
he said or
with
did.
most
Me
of the things
neither.
that he said.
I just accepted the media's narrative.
But we watched a digital assassination take place.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's interesting because they all did it within basically 48 hours, pretty much 24 hours. And it's like, so did they coordinate it?
Of course they did.
Or are they just a bunch of cowards, and once finally somebody did it, then someone else said, I have a little cover and I'm going to do it too. But the point is this guy so dangerous? Are the ideas that he puts forth, whatever those ideas may be, are they so dangerous that he can no longer communicate with other people the way we do in modern times? And if that's true, then why is Farrakhan on Twitter? Why is Hamas on Twitter? I mean, we could the amount of endless white supremacists or whatever. Right. And again, I'm not for banning these people inherently. As long as you're behaving within the laws of the United States.
Right.
So meaning you can't directly call for violence, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Short of that, you know, I believe you can say whatever you want. Now, Jordan and I are working on this platform, and I'm working on some other things where we're really trying to grapple with this, because I'm starting to think that the day of the giant platform is over altogether.
Yep.
That we don't, it's crazy that we're all on these platforms as if we've invited everyone into our house all the time.
And we haven't.
Yeah, and we haven't. And what I do is I invite all sorts of people into my home. Well, first, my studio's in my home, but I have friends of all sorts of political stripes and from all walks of life, but I don't let just anyone into my home.
Right.
And I think we've created this thing where we have people who have so polar opposite ideas that it's just causing endless catastrophe and fighting. And I don't know that the answer is to siphon ourselves off into our own little things, because I want ideas to be challenged. But maybe we do need a little bit of a space, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call it a safe space, because it's not a safe space to protect you from ideas. But maybe we do need some spaces where we can let people incubate ideas without endlessly being assaulted.
Right.
So these are all the things that I think the future of tech's going to have to deal with. And maybe there are blockchain answers to some of these things. And
no, I think if there's one thing that I've learned, and I'm constantly growing and learning, it's just that I actually really have a problem with the way that social media has banned certain people. Like I've probably watched 10 minutes of the Alex Jones show of InfoWars of his show, and it was the 10 minutes that I was on it when I first started, right? Yeah. And I sat next to him, and to be honest, he kind of is like a WWE style, like screaming at the mic, and nothing that he said, or at least while I was sitting there, and again, I'm ignorant, I'm pleading ignorance here, was something that is worthy of being banned from every platform. And they're also banning people in the ways they make income, and you can't use PayPal and you can't use Stripe.
You can't, and this has happened with Chase Bank now too. I mean, it's happened with all sorts of things. Yeah.
And my whole perspective is that it's today you, tomorrow me, right? Yeah. And if we don't speak up, regardless of how you feel about someone, I've had my spats in the past with so many people, and I now am finding my voice to say, it's actually not even worth some people that I'm spatting with. I'm like, I used to always get into little stupid Twitter tiffs with like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Right? I won't do it again.
Yeah.
I think the stakes are too high for us to be nitpicking each other and deciding if we agree on each other stylistically, when we are actually on the brink of what is looking like any of us can be banned at any moment if we're deemed too powerful. And whether you want to admit it or not, Alex Jones has a massive following.
Yeah.
Period.
And look, did they make him bigger or smaller after? I would guess that he's bigger.
I would guess he's bigger too.
You know, I don't have empirical evidence on this, but anyone that was watching him is still going to watch him, and they're going to go, he was right.
Right.
He was right the whole time.
Right.
They were coming for him, the globalists or whatever. They're coming
the
for
globalists. That's an Alex Jones thing to do, right?
Yeah. But all they did was reinforce the idea that the censorship is here, which it is.
It is here.
That he's under attack, which he is. Free speech is coming, is being whittled away. All of those things. But I would say on the point about the little nitpick and fight things, I think once I saw you and Ben getting into something on Twitter, and I think I texted you, and I was like, maybe just let it be, because you guys probably agree on 90% of the stuff.
Right.
So is he a little more critical of Trump per se than maybe you are, or whatever it was? It's not even important. It's like, your basic set of ideas, the basic view of how you want the government to exist, how you want America to be, and how you want people to be free is basically all the same.
Right.
It really is. So whether you don't like a tactic that he uses when he's critical of Trump, or he doesn't like, the way you speak to this person, or whatever that is, those are the things where it's like,
it's not going to matter.
We can all be triggered, and we can all jump, and we can all want to defend ourselves and our team. And it's like, sometimes if you just let those go, you will find something much richer on the other side. And believe me, I say this, this is no way preachy. I've messed up on this one too, and I get into these fights sometimes.
Dad. Okay, Dad.
I've done it myself. I smoked pot when I was 16 too.
But and this actually kind of hits at the fact that on the left, and one thing you have to give them credit for is that they are in lockstep. They do not critique it. You can't pay a leftist to critique a leftist, right? I mean,
no, they're in a hostage situation.
They're in a hostage. They'll sit behind and be like, Green New Deal sounds really good. Yeah. No, it's great. But put the planes in the ground, kill the cows.
Yeah.
Right? And they'll
pay
say
people to do nothing. Oh, we didn't put that in the document. Oh, I don't know how that got in the document.
Right, exactly. So, but there's something to be said that, and this could kind of hint at the fact because they are actually not individuals and they are collectivists and they don't actually have any thoughts that are their own. It's harder for conservatives to get into lockstep because we pride ourselves on our individualism, but pride cometh but pride cometh before the fall.
So what you're describing there, I sort of, if I had to visualize the way the left behaves, it's like 20 guys in a circle, and they all have a gun to the guy to the left. Right. So it all is going in a circle, and it's like, oh, you're going to say anything I don't agree with? You're going down. Oh, you're going to say so. So they're just keeping. So they're basically keeping each other in constant hostage situation. But the other thing is, they know if you imagine for years, if you were having political debates and you knew that you could beat all of your opponents basically by saying they were racist. Well, now let's say you start waking up and you start going, something ain't right here. Well, you know what those tactics are, and you've been trained in those arts, so you know what they're going to do to you on the way out, and that also keeps people silent. So the people, because I get emails like this all the time, people are waking up. Most of my emails still are from lefties waking up,
right? Mine too.
And they're going, I'm afraid to say anything because I used to do this, I used to behave this way. So it's a self hostage situation, which is a really bizarre thing, but that's why we have to just give people the room to figure out who they are and what they think.
And I talked about this. So what you're getting at right now is the number one ingredient that it comes when you're changing yourself. The one thing that you need is humility. And that is a hard pill to swallow. So when I came to you and I was on your show on the Rubin Report, I was like, I don't really know what is and what isn't, but I know that this is not right. And here's how I feel, and I'm absent some of these facts. It was a tremendously humbling experience to admit, to turn around and say, people that I once called racist aren't racist. And these people have gone, in the era of Trump, have gone real far, right? They've unfriended people on Facebook. Yeah. They've called all their friends homophobe. They've maybe ripped their kids. My kid's not going to that birthday party because his mom voted for Trump. I mean, I've heard
most of them are talking about politics with their kids.
People got divorced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, how do you divorce your husband and then say, you know what? I was actually had a little bit wrong, right? You can't. You've gone so far in on leftism that it's hard to come back to reality. And I think that's a major problem.
But that's the point. That's the point. What about these people, these blue check verified people on Twitter who they quote their children all day long? I came home and my child was like, Donald Trump's immigration policy was... How old's your child? 2. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Your kid didn't say that. That was after Hillary lost. I was all over it. And I was like, I came home and my 4-year-old was crying and I told her that she could still make it one day. I'm like, why is your 4-year-old even that invested in the election cycle? What are you talking about?
I said to so when that was all happening, I said to at the time, I think he was 6, maybe 5-year-old nephew, I said, what do you think of Donald Trump? Without pausing, he goes, he has bad hair, he has a red tie, and his name's Donald Trump. Perfect. And I was like, that's a child's answer.
That's
and he happened to be more factually correct than anyone on CNN.
Seriously, though, and that is bonkers. In reality, if your child was so invested that on the night of Hillary's election, they were crying, you're doing a bad job parenting. Because I didn't care. I didn't care when Al Gore was running against Bush. I think I wrote a little poem in 3rd grade about it, like Gore or Bush, and the election results came out, and I didn't care. I went right back to playing. So if your child was that emotionally invested, that is you putting that on your child, and that's actually just sad.
It also shows an endemic, a certain symptom of either a sick society or a sick system, because we are incredibly free right this moment. I mean, really, I started by saying this, but think about it. You could walk out of here, you as an oppressed black woman could walk out of here and do anything. You can literally, I mean, within... There's nothing you can't do, right? Like you could quit this tomorrow. You could go do another job. You could move to anywhere in the country. Anything you want to do, you could do. Same for me. Same for all the crew guys. Anyone can do whatever they want. It doesn't mean you're going to succeed at it. But these people, they are trapped in believing. I mean, really, it's sad in a way. And it's like we can joke about it, but I do want to offer these people a chance to escape, which is why maybe I do things in a slightly nicer tone than some. Like we all just use different.
You're gonna say me?
Well, that was gonna come out weird to come on your show and say it, but no. But think about it.
Other people.
Well, you know what? Sometimes people say to me, you know, because they know we're friends, and they'll be like, you know, but she's so abrasive on Twitter, or she'll fighting with this one and that one, and like they want me as if they want me to say something to you, like as I'm your keeper, and I should like put you in check, and it's like. You are relentlessly fighting for what you believe in.
Right.
And for me do you sometimes tweet in a way where I'm like,
maybe
she could have let that one go or whatever. Yes, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you do. And I've texted you about it and whatever. And I would be more than happy if you did the same thing to me. It would be, that's the point of friendship also. But the idea that you're fighting for what you believe in, and that your tactics or anyone's.
I hate when people say that.
It's actually the most condescending thing that's possible. And first, as if I could control you, or it's my job to control you, or you need to be controlled. But also, it's just that you are fighting for something. What I think you are trying to accomplish with the Black community, I think has been so long overdue and has been so starved to be heard, that if you have to do some. Can I say that on PragerU? If you have to do some that maybe isn't the way I would do it to make your point, you got to do it.
That's what people don't understand. So when people say change your tactics, you could be nicer. We already tried nice in the Black community. You tried 1,000 different times. You tried polite. That was called Dr. Ben Carson. That was called Dr. Condoleezza Rice. That was called every other Black conservative that came before me and was routinely dismissed as a coon and Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Nice doesn't work in the Black community, okay? Because we are sassier. And we do there is an attitude in the Black community. And the only way you're going to get us to do anything is to Black mom and dad it. Like my mom, when she's wake us up in the morning, she was never like, hey, honey. I used to love going to my white friends' houses and sleeping over because like their
Why are you doing an impression
these
of my
white
mom?
moms were amazing.
Yeah.
They'd be like, hey, honey, do you want some breakfast? Do you want some eggs? I'm like, does this happen in white households? And then my mom, get your out of bed. You got 5 minutes. The Black community needs to be yelled at right now. And this is ridiculous. It's been 60 years. There are no results. We're letting go of personal responsibility. We're doing it to ourselves. And we don't need someone to hold our hand because it's not going to work that way. It's not the way Black people learn in general, okay? There's a plague on the Black society. And if I have to Black mom it, and I have to people like Brandon Tatum who need to Black father it, and other people like Larry Elder who delivers the points hard, that's what we need. We can't be nice about it anymore. There's too much at stake. And it's been effective. So don't tell me to change something that's been working.
Well, look, just in the last week or 10 days, Elizabeth Warren basically said she's for reparations. And the second I saw the tweet, I thought, holy can I say on PragerU?
Yeah. That'd be the episode title. Can I say on PragerU?
I said, holy Candace is truly making waves. Because there is no way they are realizing that they have lost the lockstep Black vote.
That's exactly right.
And it's in large part because of what you've done.
Right.
So what are they going to do? What's all they can ever do? We're going to give you more money.
Yep.
We're going to give you more money. There was a great tweet that someone said, which was, I wish I could remember who said this. I just saw it a couple of days ago. It said, I'm for reparations. Anyone that owned a slave and anyone that was a slave should, the owners should pay.
DC
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's who it was. Yeah. I thought that was pretty great. Like that gets to the point. I don't want to go too far on that, but the point is that you're actually breaking this thing that has been frozen for so long.
Right.
And if you got to do some stuff that's a little different, every
you got to throw stuff. To break stuff, you got to throw stuff.
Guess what? Malcolm X and Martin Luther King had different approaches to doing things. Every comedian that's ever said anything has had a different way of saying something, right? Some comedians are dirty, some comedians are clean, but they can still comment on the world. Seinfeld was very clean. He never knew what he really thought about anything, but he could look at the world in a certain way that other people were able to look at in the same way. George Carlin was relentlessly verbal and clear. No, and I miss him every day of my life.
Loved
I don't think any public person affected me more than him, but he talked about the world in a different way. We all do things in different ways. And this idea that we have to control each other to the point that Candace will speak exactly how Dave speaks. All right, it
won't work. And I just know I'm Black, so I already know why it hasn't worked. Why I thought I had to be a liberal. Why I thought I had to be a Democratic, because there was nobody that was throwing flames.
Well, what did I tell you the first time? And it was literally the first time we met. Was the first time you were on my show.
Right.
We met for 2 minutes before. We sat down. We did that thing, and I thought I was quoting you because I've done this backwards so many times. I thought you said it, but apparently I said it. I said I took the red pill. You snorted it.
Right. Yeah.
But that's what it's like. You just went in and were like, I'm going to be unapologetic about this and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just think all of our nature is a little bit different. Like
It is.
my human nature is to be a little more, I want to see if I can massage this over to get these guys over here. And that may not always be right. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need the bombs. Like, regardless of what's happened to Milo, which I actually don't even know in the last year or so, Milo in a weird way was necessary because he blew stuff up so that the pieces could start being put back together. And I think that's my job. My job isn't necessarily to blow things up,
right,
but I can help put the pieces together. And I think you have a little bit of both, I think, actually.
Right.
And we'll see.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do both. And it's not, and look, I'm not out there. There's no theater with me. I'm not showing up to get a reaction. I'm not saying things that I don't mean. But sometimes people hold me to the fire for things that they just never lived through. Like, you could have responded differently to the mosque shooting in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you give me that time in your life where you responded to a mosque shooting in New Zealand? I mean, this is like bizarro land, right? And I'm like, I'm a 29-year-old girl being blamed for something upon a country and a continent that I've never visited.
Yeah.
And all I've ever said, by the way, is black people don't have to be Democrats. If you actually get down to the core,
right? If you
of
will
my
what
thesis,
you're doing here,
right? What I'm doing. One sentence: black people don't have to be Democrats, and the world cannot compute that.
Yeah.
It just does not work. What are you talking about? We don't have to be Democrats. What do you mean? These are our ideological slaves, and everything I've been meant to endure. The increasing media hits against me is because I'm making a difference, and black people are waking up and they're messaging me, and I'm getting thousands and thousands of emails just saying thank you, because it wasn't that black people were opposed to conservative principles. We weren't exposed to them.
Well, there's a certain beauty here because think about it. For every hit piece that has come out against you, or when the Twitter, the search bar on Twitter, what was that one? Remember when they put up far right Candace Owens, or any of those things? You know, Kanye tweets about far right Candace Owens or any of that nonsense. Guess what? You're still here.
Yeah.
Not only are you still here, you're stronger than ever. Jordan Peterson is still here. I'm still here. Any of us that have gone through this machine where every day I could wake up and there's some other hit piece written about me, or some blue check person calls me a Nazi, even though the fact that on both sides of my family, I lost family members in Holocaust. I grew up around survivors. I mean, I could tell you stories that are almost impossibly horrific to tell that I won't do right this moment. But like, we all get through it. We're all still here.
Right.
And I think that's what, there's a reason people watch this. There's a reason people care about what you do. It's because I think, and it sounds lofty, but it's like we're showing them that you can escape. And so when you're saying black people don't have to be Democrats, what you're saying is you can escape and you'll survive. And that's why you're so dangerous, because you've survived. And no matter how many times they write hit pieces, or no matter how many times, I mean, I was on tour with Jordan Peterson for a year. We did 130 stops in like 20 countries. Almost every day there was another ridiculous piece written, or there'd be pieces written about the night before that I was at, where they'd say it was, 80% white and male. And I'd be like, that's couldn't be further from the truth. And even if it was true, that doesn't inherently mean it's bad.
Right.
The criticism, well, he's attracting young white men, as if that's somehow bad. Well, maybe there's a problem with young white men right now. Maybe they're having a crisis of confidence.
Ready? Here's the best argument. Maybe you're in a country that's majority white. If you do an event in Nigeria, it's probably going to be 90+% black. Like, nobody has any idea about how, like, the actual demographics of America or the UK. And I'm like, so they'll come through our comments, they're like, the majority of people are white. Yes, the majority of people that live in America are white. The majority of people in Ireland are white. Yeah. Right? They showed up to this Irish event are white. Yes, well, if you go to Africa, you might get a little bit of different. If you do an event in Nigeria, I'll keep you posted. People don't get that. They have not gotten that yet.
Well, you got to use that logic.
Jordan Peterson's event in the UK, and the majority of the people were white.
Were white, but even put aside demographics for a second. Let's pretend that 80% of his audience were not only white, because they'll say white, but they always say angry white. They're angry, young, angry white men. Now, let's pretend that was true, even though I'm telling you, as someone that traveled with the man for the last year, it's not true. It's usually about 60-40 male. Well, you came to one of the shows. So it's 60-40, I would say, male to female, but sometimes it's 50-50, and probably sometimes more female. Age ranges all over the place, all sorts of colors and blah, blah, blah. But let's pretend they're right, and it's 80% angry young white men. Well, if his message is get out of chaos. I mean, that's the purpose of the book, right? Is 12 rules for life. Clean up your room. Start with yourself. Personal responsibility.
White supremacy.
Yeah, seriously scary stuff. Well, it's right. That's
clean my room. White supremacy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But if the message then is, if he's taking people that may be hurting, they may be hurting and they're deserving of sympathy just as anyone else would be. Just because they're young and white doesn't mean they're not deserving of sympathy. If it was 100% young, angry white men, and he was getting them to listen to a lecture where he talks about personal responsibility, getting your life in order, being a better boyfriend or husband or worker or whatever it is you are, and they walk out of there with something, then how is that bad?
It doesn't matter.
But this gets to what
the demographics don't matter. If he's preaching something that's good, it shouldn't matter. But we're in this weird society now where there is a war on white straight males, and it's obvious in headlines. It's everywhere you go. It is permissible to be outwardly racist toward white people, especially if they are white and they are straight and they are male. Like, you're lucky you have the gay thing going for you, right? I mean, they don't care though. They brush over that sometimes too.
They don't care. I mean, I spoke at Portland State University. They wrote homophobic Dave Rubin, Antifa. Yeah. It's like, I tell my husband I'm homophobic. He's confused.
That is epic. Are they calling you homophobic?
Yeah, I was speaking with Christina Hoff Sommers. They said she was a misogynist. I mean, it's
up is down and down is up. I'm past all the names. I'm actually just trying to collect them all like Pokemon at this point. I gotta catch them all. Like, what have I not been called yet? What have I not been called yet?
But the point is, you've survived.
Yeah, and they're taking the severity out of that words. And a more serious note, like, these words should mean something, right? It should mean something. But when everybody is called racist for disagreeing with you, for having a differing opinion, for not looking like you allow the racists to run around and do whatever they want because, hey, if you actually are racist, but they're calling Candace Owens racist, what a great time to be racist in society.
What a wickedly brilliant time to be racist.
Right.
Well, I think we've talked about my friend David Webb, who I think you know, right?
Yeah,
you know David?
He's great. He did a show.
So David and I, when I was on Sirius XM and I wanted to do a political show, but because I was out and gay, they would only keep me on the gay channel, and I begged, put me on the political channel, and they wouldn't do it, and they put me on the gay channel, talking to real, because gay people should have separate radio stations.
Separate
brilliant. It doesn't exist anymore, fortunately, because that's the beauty actually of equality. Because actually, as rights became equal, then why should a gay person have to listen to a gay radio station? So that's a beautiful thing when we can get out of those ghettos in a certain way. But anyway, David Webb was doing, he's on the right channel, I forget what it's called, the Patriot channel. And somehow we met in the hallway, became friends, and I would do a show every now and again, and I was the lefty. I was definitely a lefty at the time, and he was the righty, and we'd argue things out and whatever. And then flash forward a couple of years, I'm on the Young Turks, and this was one of my real seminal moments about what I realized about the pernicious racism of the left. They were playing a clip of Fox News and David Webb. And David Webb, I don't remember the specifics, but he was talking about some conservative talking points. And then they come back to us in the studio, and there's three of us there. And one of the hosts, doesn't matter his name, he goes, well, there's the token black guy. There's the Uncle Tom. And I thought, it was the first moment that it really crystallized for me, because I was like, wait a minute, I know him.
Right.
I'm friends with him. I've had dinner with him. We've gotten drunk together. I know this is not only a good man, but I know this is a man who believes what he is saying. And here is a white, lefty, liberal, the tolerant type who hears a black man who dares say something he disagrees with. So what is the black man? Obviously, the black man's an Uncle Tom or a self-hating black man, or
the racial slurs that we have to endure.
Yeah, and from the so-called tolerant people. So when I saw that, because it was real time right in front of me, and I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, I know that guy. That was one of the moments. Everyone that's watching this, and all of us have had a few moments that are the real wake-up moments, and that was one for me when I was like, this is, because it's not overt racism. I mean, that's how they confuse people. Because overt racism is like, I don't like black people, or I don't want Jews coming to my country club, or whatever it is. I don't want let any Mexicans into America, or something like that. That's overt racism if you take a group and you want to treat them differently. Their racism is different. Their racism is, it's not overt, but it's more subversive. It's actually much more dangerous.
Right. It actually, if you look at it objectively, it is overt. If you're up there, you're calling someone a token or an Uncle Tom. Right. So somehow we've accepted that that's okay. Like, overt racism towards black conservatives is considered not racism. It's like, excuse me? Like, could you imagine in what world someone like Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson could say things to a black liberal that were racial slurs?
Yeah. Well, all right. You know what
I'm saying? But
I'll come with you on that.
Accepted it.
Right. We've accepted.
We're just like, oh no, calling a token. It's not covert racism. That is overt racism, right? Like, you are just saying it.
Yeah.
And society has accepted it.
So that shows you how the leftist narrative has become the mainstream narrative. Right. So what I'm calling covert, it's really just because it's become mainstream. Right. Mainstream accepted. And what you're saying, I think you're right actually, is that is the overt part of it.
is.
Because it's so obviously in your face, you can't even see it.
Right.
And that's what the problem is. So, I've seen many instances of this with the left. And what I can tell you is every time I go to a college or any speaking event on the right, and I've done some of these with you and I do all sorts of them, I talk about disagreements that I have with them, all sorts of things. And they are there to have that conversation. And it's incredible. It's actually incredible and it's shocking. And I think the more that the right, broadly speaking, the more the conservatives can just kind of sit back and be like, we're going to agree to disagree. We're going to respect, some difference of opinions. Abortion would be one that I think would be really interesting, where that's a real make or break one for most people, right? You're either pro-life or you're pro-choice. Do you think it's possible that someone could be conservative and pro-choice? Do you think that's possible?
It kind of goes against the foundation of conservatism. You say you don't think that people have a right to live.
Okay,
right?
so I think that would
life,
be...
liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and that's something that usually collapses upon itself.
Right, so I think the average person on the left would say, well, I care more about the life of the mother than the unborn child. But I get your point, and I think you're right. That's what most conservatives would say. But what I would argue is that conservatives should try to carve out a little space, not to become a pro-choice party, but just a little space so that some of the people who are kind of just in between things and figuring things out know that you don't have to get there that day.
Right.
That there's room to move and operate. And I think the more that we see that on the right...
I'm pro-life now, and I wasn't when I sat across from you on your show.
Yeah,
that was one of the things
I remember
that I couldn't answer.
Yeah.
And I'm pro-life now because I'm much more educated about it, and education is key. So here's what I actually believe, and this is where I meet people in the middle, because I used to be pro-choice, and I went to neutral, and now I'm pro-life. If the education system actually just told the truth about abortion and what the process is, women would not most women, you would see it drastically reduce abortions. They talk about it in school like you're choosing between wearing brown shoes or black shoes in the morning when you learn about pro-choice. It's your choice. You wake up in the morning, do you want to wear brown shoes or black shoes? That's how I learned about abortion. It was flippantly, it's on a baby, it's a clump of cells, you throw it away. There was nothing teaching you the truth about abortion. Go back, and I encourage everybody that's listening to this podcast to go watch Dr. Ben Carson just describe the process of abortion at this year's 2019 CPAC. It does something to you because you're a human being, and you can't hear a doctor describe to you what they do when they rip these babies out of the womb, and suddenly you realize it's not a clump of cells, right? And that allows you to make a better decision. That allows you to actually assign some personal responsibility. Most of these people that are really against abortion, either A, they had one, and I have friends that had abortion, and then you feel like a hypocrite if you say that you're pro-life. And I invite people, if you had an abortion,
we're all hypocrites.
And we are, and you did it when you were younger. That does not mean you cannot be pro-life. Yeah. That actually would make you a stronger advocate for pro-life. And I invite those people in because I used to think like them, and I wasn't educated. And I do believe that you're right, and there needs to be a middle ground, and for people to know that they're not going to be judged. I don't judge people that are pro-choice.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So I can go to a libertarian or conservative event and talk about, I describe myself as begrudgingly pro-choice. I think it's a horrible decision to have to make, and I'm really struggling with it. And by the way, I'm struggling with it more now than ever because the left has gone so bananas on abortion.
9 months.
So they're literally talking, I mean, they're
nuts.
honestly having discussions about post-birth abortions. I mean, really crazy.
Just murder, right?
Which is...
Kill your 2-year-old? Will be soon? Give it 3 years?
Could we have
you know what? I don't really love this 2-year-old.
We have a 46-year-old abortion, right? But they're going so extreme on this, where they think that third-term abortions should be allowed. Now, we could go into, if you have a baby with a severe brain defect, and we can do all the outlier cases to discuss all that. But what I can tell you is I can go to conservative events and talk about those things. And you know what I find usually? Usually if a student or someone will ask me about abortion and we get into it, usually they're thrilled that someone disagreed with them respectfully. And they'll kind of, at the end, they'll always be like, well, I'll get you soon enough, or you'll come around soon enough.
Right.
And that's sort of like where I'm at, when lefties, the tolerant lefties, get angry that I can call Ben Shapiro a friend despite his feeling about gay marriage, or that he said he wouldn't bake me a cake for my wedding. And I'm not going to force the freaking guy to bake me a cake, and I don't think he would be a good baker.
I really don't think Ben Shapiro's a good baker.
Yeah, I'm not going to bake him a cake. I'll buy him a kosher cake and pico.
Definitely not a good baker.
Yeah, he's definitely not a good baker.
Putting that out there.
But the tolerant people get so angry when we agree to disagree, and they're doing it in the name of tolerance. And it's like, what are you saying? What are you actually saying? Who's being tolerant? The two people trying to agree to disagree, or the tolerant lefties belittling them for it?
Right.
So these things can all be fixed. I think we're fixing them right now. And I really do think that there is a unique opportunity because of the Russia thing blowing up, that the media has shown its cards, and even for the people that for the last 2 years, we're kind of like, what the hell is going on online with all this whole crew of people talking about things that are kind of making sense and blah, 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 that we're still like, oh no, CNN can't be lying. It's like, how much more do you need now? So I really think there is such
They're conspiracy theorists.
There
like
is,
people that call everybody conspiracy theorists have in fact been the conspiracy theorists for the last 2 years.
Well, think about it though. If you went all in, and there are many celebrities and political pundits and all these people, if you go all in on something, and this is what we were saying about racism before, if you go all in so that you think all of your political opponents are racists, it's extremely hard to get out. You've painted yourself into a corner. You can't say Trump's Hitler and repeatedly say it. And then it's 3 years later and you go, well, the economy's doing pretty good. We're clearly not going into any extra wars. He's changed some of our foreign policy deals. He's basically destroyed the UN, which is the most corrupt organization in the history of the world.
Obliterated
short of Legion of Doom. Yeah.
Right.
He's done all of these things. He's not coming. Anyone can leave America if you want to leave. When they compare him to Hitler, it's like Hitler forced people to stay in death camps. Anyone can leave America. So the point is, if you've called him Hitler, you painted yourself into such a corner that when you realize he's not, and let's say he's just a center-right guy, and yes, is he a little
bombastic?
Yes, he's a little bombastic, and he's a little orange in the hair, what the hell's going on there, and all those things. But the point is, if you've said he's Hitler, you can never get out of that.
Right.
I was wrong about the Hitler thing. You know what I mean? No, Hitler, that's a bit much. But that's what they've done. So they're holding themselves hostage, like the analogy I used before, and they've painted themselves into a corner.
Right.
And the trick is, well, how do we help these people out?
Saying like I just said, which is that if you're someone that's pro-choice, I would fully accept the transformation there and what you do every day when you say you're a classical liberal, which is a huge lie. But you invite the conversation, and I understand what you're saying about that, and I do think that that's exactly what you're saying, is that you and I have different approaches, but there needs to be someone that when they take their first step, you don't need to necessarily snort the red pill, right? But when you're ready to maybe digest a piece of it, you have Dave Rubin.
But also, I'm not saying that I'm just a stopgap on the way to conservatism. Right. I am saying that classical liberals and conservatives of the day, I don't know that it can be saved. I'm worried about this. I mean, this is what I'm writing my book about. Like, liberalism as an idea may be on its last legs, because the default position of liberals to be a little more open-minded about things in a crazy time when you have a crazy postmodern leftist agenda, maybe just being sort of nicer about things, which is the default position of liberals usually, because there is a more live and let live attitude there. Maybe that's not a tenable set of ideas right now in a crazy time. And maybe that's why, maybe, I don't know, but maybe conservatism will have a stronger set of legs right now for the world as it's constructed at the moment.
What's the title of your book? Am I allowed to ask that? Or is
well,
that
I can tell you after, but I can't.
You can't tell me.
I can't tell you right now. But I believe it will be announced on April 29th with another big
That's
announcement.
my birthday.
On your birthday.
It's my birthday, so it'll overshadow your book announcement. I'll be turning 30 on April 29th, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about me.
You're 29?
Oh, I'm 29. I'll be 30.
Oh, Jesus.
I know, I'm done. I'm done. You see how I did it? It was about his book, and then it was, woo, party for Candace. Candace Owens show.
I think everyone saw how you did it.
Can't wait to trump your book announcement with my birthday announcement. It's going to be really fun.
But you'll have a book. It sounds like we're going to have books coming out at basically the same time. So this is the official challenge. Who will be higher on the New York Times bestseller list? Man, they are going to. Can you imagine that day when they get the returns in that day? And Peterson has a new book coming out too.
Yeah.
And for all we know, Ben's book will still be up there. They're going to be like Peterson, Shapiro, Owens, and Rubin. They're going to burn this place down. You know?
Yeah.
Now I just went with the curse.
Right. Oh, you're going to be in big trouble. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. We can beep things out. All right. Well, so we wrap every episode with, have you seen my show?
I have seen the show.
Okay, good. I was checking to see if you knew. So with you get 2
I watched
minutes.
a
Did you
little
write
bit
a
of-
speech?
I watched a little bit
Probably
of-
wrote a speech. It's Dave Rubin.
I did not write a speech. I am epically unprepared.
Okay, you get 2 minutes to launch a vibration into the world. You say anything you want to that camera. And it had to fall in everybody's ears, and it had to become a law tomorrow, and it just had to be the way of the world. What would you say? Dave Rubin, on the clock, on your mark, get set, go.
I've done this once or twice on my show, so I think I can do it. Basically, what I would say is if you want to live as a free person in a free society, then you should always be fighting for your own individual rights. You should be fighting for limited government, limited power over people, limited power to have people. Can we start that over?
No.
Yes. No, we can't. You should be fighting for other people to have limited power over you. And you know what that might mean? You might not be able to rejigger society to be exactly what you want it to be, but you will basically live as a free person. And that's all that you should want in a free society. You can't control everybody, and not everybody can control you. That's the trade-off you got to make. But we live, if you're watching this in America or pretty much in any Western country, you live in the freest society in the history of the world. You can do what you want, and don't give that up just because it kind of sounds right, or because other people are promising to give you things, because what they're promising you is servitude. So fight for what you believe in, say what you believe in, especially in America, where we still have the First Amendment, where everyone in Europe is begging to have the same rights we have. Say what you believe, because otherwise you think this is going to magically get better in 3 years. I have to tell you that it will not. I really was upset that I butchered the beginning of that thing,
No, it
because
was
the rest
good.
was pretty
It's
solid.
good. It comes off authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little sidebar. Can I go over? No. That's what we need. That's exactly what the show is all
And the
about.
vodka, by the way. Again. Exactly.
The vodka. We might have to start putting a little bit of, right?
But this, my friend, this is what it's all about, right?
Right,
This
know.
is what it's all about. It
Yeah.
does not matter what we disagree on.
Yeah.
It simply does not. We want to live in the same place that respects our ability to be different.
Right.
And you know what? Maybe 5 years from now, I'll have cracked, because the left will have gotten me so crazed and whatever
They're
that I'll
worse
be
to you.
that no, they're of
Your
course
Twitter, it's like the
yeah, mine's completely out of
vicious
control.
towards
Yeah,
you.
but you know what? It's just
because
people
they think you're still theirs. They think there's something proprietary about because you say you're a liberal. With me, they're like, she's a lost cause.
Right. So there's an extra threat there. But the point is, maybe 5 years from now, I'll have completely cracked and gone off the deep end, and I'll be angrily tweeting at everybody, and you're going to have to call me up and go, Dave,
Calm down.
settle down.
Thank you guys for watching the latest episode of the Candace Owens Show. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As many of you guys already know, PragerU is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which means we need your help to keep all of our content free to the public. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation today. I would really appreciate your support.